Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, September 1st, 2020 Public Works Committee meeting. Now is time for a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Stroman. Here. Evans. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you. And now is time for adoption of the agenda. Got a motion to adopt by Councilman Nordstrom, a second by Councilman Stroman, and we will do a roll call vote.
Nordstrom.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Stroman. Aye. Evans. Aye. Motion passes.
Now on to general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And we do have one speaker request form. Mr. Randolph, if you get up to the podium, give us your name, your address, and then you have the podium.
All right, thank you. My name is David Randolph. I live at 3615 Bunker Drive, Rapid City 57701. Hello, my name is David Randolph. I am the owner of Care Right Cleaning and Protection Specialist. We have serviced the Rapid City area for almost 40 years. I, as you too, might be looking or searching for something more to help stop the community spread of this current virus. One problem we all face is that a surface cleaned only stays cleaned or disinfected until it's touched. We have a solution for that. It's called monofoil. It is an antimicrobial coating. Our area rug cleaning chemist and products distributor researched and found this product that protects surfaces with an antimicrobial shield that lasts between cleanings for up to 3 months. No need for continual deep cleaning with disinfectants that don't last. Simply wipe with a general cleaner. No bleach or other harsh products are needed. Monofoil is a patented, EPA-approved, non-toxic, antiviral, hyperallergenic green product. It provides a 24/7 molecular bonded polymer barrier against bacteria, fungus, algae, and viruses. Unlike Lysol or bleach, it has no VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. It is odorless, colorless, non-leaching, and leaves no sticky or soil-attracting residue. It has been independently lab tested, and the protection is not removed by normal cleaning. It must be worn off with friction. It is the only product approved for non-porous and porous surfaces like textiles. And that's one of the uniquenesses of this product, is that it can be used on carpets, furniture, drapes, things like that. Monofoil can be applied to any filter in an HV system to clean the air in a commercial or residential setting. The residual shield coating creates a network of electrically charged molecules on the surface which rupture the viral and bacteria's cell on contact, causing instant cellular death. It is used by large metro transit systems and sports locker rooms. This technology just received emergency use from the EPA to be used on American Airlines last week. The military has used this nanotechnology to keep our soldiers' socks and clothes from becoming contaminated while in the field on missions. Care Right Cleaning Specialist hopes our city can use monofoil in our community, such as schools, buses, airports, healthcare, food services, commercial buildings. I understand the swim center is opening today. I thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. If anyone wants to ask him a question, go ahead. It doesn't look like we have any questions right now, but I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. Mr. Randolph, if you don't mind, a little bit of latitude here. Mr. Randolph called me about a week ago and came to my office yesterday and visited me and gave me quite a bit of information on this. And one of the things that we were discussing is, possibly a way to clean our bus system, because some of the major transit systems are using that. And I thought, if we can get COVID-19 money to pay for it, what would it hurt? Anyway, go ahead, Mr. Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you. How do you spell monofoil? I was going to.
M-O-N-O-F-O-I-L. Yes, I have a little literature, flyers and stuff where it's being used in the transit systems. It's being used in sports locker rooms. And then they've tested products. We have some testing that's been done with it, showing that it is effective, such as the toilet flushing handles, the faucet handles, towel handles, treadmills, drinking fountains, an average reduction of 88% at 30 days of application.
Thanks. That's all I.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yep.
Now we will move on to, or I will close general public comment because I don't see anyone else that wants to speak. We will move on to consent items, items 1 through 9. I will open public comment. I don't have any public comment that I see, so I will close public comment, and I will look for someone to, does anybody want to pull anything on consent? Number 8? And if there's no one else that's going to pull anything, I will look for a motion.
Move to approve.
I think 9 through 9.
Except for 8.
So it would be 1 through 9 except for 8. Is that all right with the motion maker? Okay.
Sure.
So we have a motion from Councilman Stroman, a second from Councilman Nordstrom to approve items 1 through 9 except for item 8. And I will look for a roll call vote.
Nordstrom,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Stroman, Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you. On to item 8, request from Kimberly and Shane Geidel, the property owners, for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance 16.16.050 along Bradsky Road, which is the west frontage of their property located at 23410 Bradsky Road. And Mr. Evans, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you. I'm not necessarily for or against this. I just like some clarification before we vote on it, because time and again, we are overruling our engineering and public works people to give variances that make sense for me. In what I've read, and I have to say I have not been out to inspect this particular one. What makes this one different? Why are we recommending that we get the variance on this? How does this prevent us from not having the same thing we're always dealing with in terms of these legacy problems, so that 8 years, we're not going back and trying to get these people to put in a sidewalk that they were given the variance on. So anybody who knows about this, Mr. Tech looks like he wants to explain it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is not located within the city limits. It's in the city 3-mile platting jurisdiction, and as part of the action of the plat, there was a large parcel that was, I believe, divided into two smaller parcels, and when I say smaller, there are multiple acres each. Total frontage of this property along a rural county road is about 1,700 feet, so that's a significant amount of sidewalk that would have to be installed per their platting action. Once again, this area is in the 3-mile platting jurisdiction. I gotta believe that Bradsky Road, by the time it gets to be within the city limits, it will need to be reconstructed, and at that time, these larger agricultural properties will be further subdivided, and that would be a more appropriate time to install the sidewalk. City staff did recommend approval of this for those very reasons.
And my understanding that is that this is even farther out than the 3-mile limit then, but originally it had to be included because the original property was within the 3-mile limit, but
Well,
it seems to be
actually,
divided.
if you want to, the technical reason is it's near the airport. The airport is part of the
Okay.
city, and there's a 1.25 miles, I believe, buffer around the airport that the rules apply to. So.
All right, thanks. I figured it was something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't see anybody else in the queue. If we can get a motion? Got a motion to approve by Councilman Evans, a second by Councilman Stroman, and we will go to roll call vote.
Nordstrom,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Stroman, Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you. Now we're on, that's the end of the non-consent. We'll move on to the consent calendar, items 10 through 15. I will open public comment. I don't see anybody jumping up and down, so I will close public comment. We'll go on to item 10, comprehensive plan amendment to revise the Rapid City Future Land Use Plan, a request by City of Rapid City to consider an application for a comprehensive plan amendment to revise the Rapid City Future Land Use Plan. Do I have anybody that wants to speak on this?
Yes, we'll have Kelly Brennan give a brief summary, and if you have any questions, she can answer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kelly Brennan, Long Range Planning. So back in December, we came to the Planning Commission and asked them to sponsor a city comprehensive plan amendment. The reason we do this is because Plan Rapid City, which was adopted on June 4th of 2014, has a recommendation that periodically we review and possibly amend the future land use plan. Back in January, we sent out property owner notifications to every single property owner that is part of this amendment. We talked to about 60% of the property owners. One person asked that their property be taken out of the amendment, which we did. The rest of them were all happy with what we were going with. We kind of got paused due to the pandemic, and so then again sent out property owner notifications in July as kind of a reminder. We got one phone call at that time, and the gentleman just kind of forgot about it initially. So the goal of this is kind of a cleanup. We have a lot of areas through town that the zoning does not match the overlaying future land use plan. And then also we have a couple areas that development has happened or wants to happen that can't due to some restrictions. So I'm going to go through each of the changes quickly. Okay, number one, this is a residential area east of Healing Way in the Buffalo Crossing subdivision. This is all existing residential use, so we're proposing to change it from mixed-use commercial to urban neighborhood. Number two is also kind of a cleanup. This is all existing residential uses. You can see how there's kind of some spotty areas. That one yellow parcel on the left map that is not proposed to change was the property owner that chose to not be involved in this amendment. Number 3, this is an area located along Farlow Avenue between Nolan Street and Custer Street. These parcels are all currently zoned MDR and office commercial. So mixed-use commercial is not really an appropriate future land use designation, while urban neighborhood is. This is the old Garfield School area. So this used to be a public future land use designation. It's obviously been redeveloped as a residential, and so we're proposing to change that to urban neighborhood as well, just to fit the surrounding neighborhood. Number 5 is on the north side of Catron, opposite of Wellington. This is a developer-driven future land use change. The developer plans to build multifamily units in this area, and so the low-density neighborhood designation was no longer appropriate, while the urban neighborhood would allow for that development. Number 6, this is east of Haynes Avenue, north of Catherine Avenue. So this one was rezoned to general commercial to put in, I believe, a Dollar General, and so we're just retroactively amending or proposing to retroactively amend the future land use to mixed-use commercial to better match that zoning. Number 7, we spoke to the property owners on this one. This was kind of a mutual decision. This is just kind of a mess in there. I'm not really sure why the future land use designations were set up the way they were. The developer or property owner is looking to do some work there, and so we agreed that these changes to mixed-use commercial and urban neighborhood would be not only a good cleanup for this area, but would also help with his redevelopment of his properties. This is a parcel just north of I-90 and east of Dias, and this is just a cleanup. At some point in time, I'm not sure why, we had this little bump out of light industrial. It should match the surrounding, and it does match the zoning as well of general commercial. So this is the area northwest corner of 5th Street and Parkview Drive, and then along Catron and 5th Street as well. So 5A and 5B, which are the two northern portion or parcels, have already been rezoned and already have building permits issued for commercial uses. And so the employment center designation is not really appropriate for that. However, mixed use commercial designation is. And then when we started looking at this area, we realized that that entire area along Bentley there was really developing in a more of a GC manner than what, you know, the employment center would allow. And so we did stretch that mixed-use commercial, or are proposing to stretch that mixed-use commercial farther down Catron Boulevard. So this is, you can't see very well, this is a blown-up map showing where all of those proposed land use changes are throughout the city. We're trying to do these once or twice a year, trying to clean up areas that we have problems with. We're trying to fix areas that potentially were incorrectly labeled when the comprehensive plan was done, or like I said, that development has went in a different direction than initially expected. So I'll take any questions, if there is any.
Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can go back to that last map that you have up there, Kelly, we've done a number of changes already, and the projection for the future, for future land use changes, have you got an approximation about how many more we've got to go through on this?
For future land use changes?
Yeah.
We expect to have them at least once or twice a year. So what happens is if we get a rezone request in, we look at it as a team and we come forward and we say, okay, we're going to support this. Even if the future land use doesn't necessarily support it, maybe it's good for the neighborhood, it's good for development. So we're going to go ahead and put that on our list that when we go to look at to do our next future land use plan amendment, we'll add that in. So as this time period has been happening, we've been acquiring more that will be on the next one.
Thank you. And then I don't think I have anything specific at this point about each one of those individual parcels that are getting changed on the land use part of it, but I think the one of general interest was the developer-driven one up on East Catron Boulevard, and I want to say it is the Lloyd's property, if I'm correct on that one.
You are correct.
And the land use designation and changing on that, remind us what that involved, going from what to what? I remember you saying that it was converting to multi-family?
Right.
Yes.
Excuse me. So the low-density neighborhood future land use designation that it currently is not really set up for multifamily land use, or for multifamily development. It's primarily single-family residences and two-family residences. Urban neighborhood, which is what we're proposing to change it to, allows for MDR and HDR and is actually a primary use is those type of apartment buildings. So by supporting that rezone and then amending the future land use plan, we're in essence supporting the developer developing the property.
Thank you. And that helps me understand, because it looks like in the surrounding neighborhoods is that we've got some additional possibilities of other multifamily uses up in that area.
Yep, and so what we do is we have a team called Luau. We meet every 2 weeks and we discuss future land use changes. That's all we talk about. And so we're always open to anything that is going to be developer driven, or if a property owner wants to change the use of their property, or in certain cases like down in that employment center on number 9, where, you know, when this land use map was created initially back in 2014, a lot of this development was just barely starting. And so it was thought that that was how it was going to develop, but now it's not. So we have to be receptive to that and work with people to make good use of their property as long as it's not invasive to the neighborhood.
Thank you. I yield.
Councilman Evans, you have the floor.
I have a question. Do we have an overruling design philosophy for the city? For instance, I believe that lining, all of our arterial streets, main transportation corridors with businesses is not necessarily a model that works. You see countless instances in big cities of where it's failed after 10 or 15 years. West Colfax, Dodge Street, you can just go. Excelsior Boulevard in Minneapolis, it doesn't work because eventually those neighborhoods become old. They become not the cool place to be. And I see a couple of our streets are ripe for this. For instance, the area of Haynes between North Street on to where it's already commercial, parts of Jackson, which function beautifully in their present role, as transportation from one node to another. Do we have an overruling philosophy that kind of guides us toward where we want the city to be and how we want it to grow?
Well, we don't have anything that's overruling. We do follow some of those things that you're talking about. Traditionally on an arterial street, we don't want to have single-family homes on a 45-mile-an-hour entrance corridor to the city. It's not a great use of land. However, that doesn't mean that it can't happen or isn't happening. It just means in the future we can see some of that redeveloping as commercial or different aspects. And so that's why the future land use plan is different than zoning. It's not saying that this is what you have to do, because somebody could come in tomorrow and ask to rezone a property, and even if the future land use didn't meet it, if the city council chose to allow that rezone, it doesn't matter. But what we use it as is a tool to try to guide kind of planning decisions throughout the city. It's just kind of a secondary tool that we use to try to see what we think. And we're not mind readers, and I wasn't even working for the city when this future land use plan was put out, so I foresee that we'll probably be doing a major comp plan amendment within the next few years, kind of looking at this all as like an overhaul. But for now, what we're trying to do is just kind of fix these areas that we do see as a problem and also just try to help development.
Well, I hope we can come up with some sort of design philosophy that helps us build a really successful, beautiful community. And I think there's been enough studies done over the last 40, 50 years as to know some models work and some don't. And we can just travel in the successful, desirable cities around, our state, and find out that it kind of always works that way. Lining streets with businesses isn't always the best way to transport people from one neighborhood to another, and there's other models to explore, and maybe we need to think about that, be proactive, rather than just letting it happen. We tell people that isn't going to happen because this is what's going to happen. So anyhow.
Well, and we'll make sure that when we do our comprehensive plan amendment or update, we'll get everyone's input, and there'll be lots of property ownership and neighborhood meetings and how we all think that this development is going to happen. We make mistakes though, and we can't control everything, but we're just trying to guide the development so that it isn't invasive to any neighborhood. And
Okay.
that's kind of our main goal.
Thank you.
Ken, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to add a little bit there, just a little bit of understanding as to what exactly our comprehensive master plan is. Now, one of those components is the future land use map, which is what we're working with right here. But I think when you talk about a design philosophy for the development or growth of the community, it really is our entire comprehensive master plan. There are a lot of goals and objectives stated within that plan that help form that philosophy that you're referring to. So what we're trying to do here is, and on a regular basis, is to review how that future land use map, the particulars as it meets with land use, could and should be updated, refreshed as we go along. But every once in a while, we will be doing an overall comprehensive review and updating of our entire plan. Last time that was done is 2014. So we will be looking at, in the next few years, doing another one of those comprehensive reviews and updating the plan. But it is a fluid document, is not to be considered in stone. We have to react to current realities and development demands. But we do have, that entire document is a designing philosophy, if you will.
Thank you very much. Does anybody mind if I chime in a little bit? Thank you very much. Can you pull up map number 3, please? The reason I'm pulling this one up is I had a couple of phone calls from people, from property owners in this one. At the very top of that, there's about, I think, 3 or 4 commercial businesses in the very top. And their concerns are, if this is rezoned, they're worried that their properties are going to be worth nothing.
Well, it's not being rezoned. We're not changing the zoning of any property.
Okay.
As long as their property stays at the use that it's at, nothing changes, there's no issues.
What about when they go to sell it?
Still no issues.
Okay.
There's no, I mean, we can't force any property owner to rezone their property. The zoning stays the same. Now, if they were to come in and want to rezone to, say, general commercial, that would no longer be supported by the comprehensive, or by the future land use plan. And the reason that is that general commercial isn't appropriate for this neighborhood. The uses that are there now they're neighborhood commercial in essence.
Yes.
And as long as, they're staying in that same kind of cocoon, we don't want to change that. What we're saying is we don't want someone to be able to come in and rezone to GC and put a car wash on a corner if that would be invasive to the neighborhood, or other uses that GC wouldn't necessarily.
You don't have to worry about them putting a car wash there.
Well, I mean, that's just an example. The thing is
I'm just kidding.
by changing the land use, we are not changing the zoning. And in
Yes,
fact-
and I just wanted this on record because I know they're watching.
Oh, well, and I
So-
spoke to many of those landowners in that area and explained to them that, yep, we weren't changing the zoning, just the future land use.
Thank you, I appreciate it. If there's no more questions, I will look for a motion. Got a motion to approve by Councilman Evans, a second by Councilman Stroman, and we will go to a roll call vote.
Nordstrom,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Stroman, Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 11, acknowledge the 2021 through 2024 Transportation Improvement Program final report.
We have Kip Harrington here who can give you a brief update as to what that is and answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kip Harrington, Long Range Planning. So this is the Transportation Improvement Program final report for the years 2021 through 2024. And the Transportation Improvement Program lists out all the different construction projects and their associated funding sources. And it lists out all the different entities within the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So it goes through the South Dakota Department of Transportation projects, the City of Rapid City projects, the City of Box Elder projects, Meade County and Pennington County projects as well. So basically it just lets everybody know what the construction projects over the next 4 years will be and that are currently funded and programmed.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? And where can, say, the general public see that?
The general public can find it on both the City of Rapid City website under the Transportation Planning tab, and it's also on the Rapid City Area Metropolitan Planning Organization website, rapidcityareampo.org.
Thank you, Kip. If we don't have anybody that wants to speak on this, I'll look for a motion to acknowledge. Got a motion to acknowledge by Councilman Nordstrom, a second by Councilman Stroman, and we will go to a roll call.
Nordstrom?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Roberts?
Aye.
Stroman? Evans? Motion carries.
Item number 12, approve the 6th Street corridor study. And Kip, I'm guessing you're here to talk about that too.
That is correct, sir. I can go through a presentation if you'd like, or I'd just be able to answer questions, whatever you prefer.
It's up to the committee. Okay, go ahead, Kip.
All right, thank you very much. So this is the 6th Street Corridor Plan, which is one of the two components of the overall 6th Street study. The first component was the 6th and Omaha pedestrian crossing report, which we saw the draft report a few months ago, and that took a look at the feasibility of providing a different pedestrian crossing at 6th and Omaha. This is more of an overall view of 6th Street all along its length from the Performing Arts Center in Rapid City High School on the south to the Civic Center on the north. The 6th Street really is one of the key downtown streets for mobility and activity. It's a very popular street. There's a lot going on there. We've had some different planning efforts in the past that have tried to establish a future vision but haven't really come up with a cohesive plan. We look at the downtown master plan. There's been a 6th Street promenade study. This aims to build on all those. And really looking at what types of improvement we can do along that corridor, whether it be landscape or streetscape or transportation related, to enhance our safety, improve connectivity, and make people more comfortable along that corridor. As we stated, there's many destinations along there, from the Performing Arts Center in the high school to the library to Main Street Square to City Hall and our bus terminal, Milo Barber Transportation Center. It also ties into Memorial Park and the Legacy Commons playground, and then at the north end is our Rushmore Plaza Civic Center and the new Monument Arena. So it's a very important corridor. It's a multimodal corridor. People walk it, people bike it, people drive it, and like I said, our bus terminal is right there, so there's a lot of transit on that street. And it does serve as the main link between downtown and the park. So as far as engagement, we had 2 different public meetings. You can see there that map that people got to leave stickies and draw on. We had a public website and an online commenting map where we received a lot of comments through that. And we had multiple opportunities to go up and down the corridor and through downtown and speak with business owners and get their input on that. And we also, due to the pandemic, couldn't hold our last public meeting, so we did an online survey. And that survey was for community priorities and what the recommendations were, and we received over 500 responses to the survey, which means it's one of the best, most well-received surveys we've ever done. And the overall response was very positive. One of the questions asked, how does this align with what you think the goals are? Rate this 1 to 10. And you can see on the chart that the majority of the responses were in the 7 to 10 range. So we think we did a pretty good job of aligning the study with what people's expectations were. And then we also asked the community for their priorities, what they think we should do along this corridor, both transportation-wise and amenities, and how can we make this an overall concept. So we came up with some vision and goals for the study advisory team, and the 4 goals were safety, accessibility, connection, and a character and identity goal. And through the public survey, the community members identified safety as the most important goal along the corridor. We took a look at different types of elements that could be done through improvements, and the survey asked people to rank those. And so transportation-wise, sidewalks and enhanced crosswalks became the most popular answer. And then for community amenities, people really wanted to see enhanced lighting followed by landscaping. There's the downtown lighting project that goes along Main and St. Joe. A lot of people said they wanted to see that extended north and south along 6th Street as well. So again, some of the elements that were recommended were lighting, crosswalks, some plaza space, bicycle parking, just various things like that that could be accomplished along the corridor. And then at the north end, the 6th and Omaha crossing, we developed a couple different concepts to share with the community. These are by far not the only concepts that could be developed, but just a couple for an example. The one on the top is what's called a park cover, where Omaha Street would be slightly lowered and 6th Street would be slightly raised, and would be an extension of the park over Omaha Street into downtown. And then we also had one that was called a ribbon walkway, which would be an elevated walkway up and over Omaha Street to tie into Memorial Park. And through the public survey, about 2/3 of the survey respondents preferred the park cover concept. Now, as we move farther along in this process, we will take a look at these concepts in more detail, some engineering and design phases, and there can be other concepts that would be considered as well. And then we came up with some corridor recommendations up and down the entire length of the corridor. So showing some different streetscape improvements, what can be built where, and some ideas for improvements along each block. So this is the southern end from the Performing Arts Center up to Kansas City Street past the library. And then again from Kansas City Street up past Main Street, so the main part through downtown, looking at some options that can be done there. And then from Main to Omaha, showing kind of a plaza here at City Hall, making more of an extension of the plaza that's out there in front of the building now, and then extending into the park that way. And then some various improvements through Memorial Park, including lighting and interpretive signage and art, things like that. Maybe some more tree plantings, just some ways to beautify that corridor even a little bit more and connecting it to the Civic Center. The next steps in this process, we are going to kind of break this out into different categories and see what can be done in each of the individual components. We want to look at some partnership opportunities. How can we get this going, and who has to be involved in making this happen? And then, of course, funding is the big one. There's always going to be a need for funding, and especially if we do the pedestrian crossing, that will require some serious funds. So we'll look at what's available for the city, perhaps anything from CIP or the Vision Fund. We're certainly looking at grant application opportunities. There's the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is focused on bicycle and pedestrian transportation. We may be able to leverage some of those funds. And then there's a grant program called the Build Grant, which is a transportation infrastructure grant that it really goes towards innovative concepts. We feel this is a very unique situation. There's nothing like this in our state, so we think would be a very good candidate. And in speaking with our DOT and federal highway partners, they think this would be an excellent candidate for something like that once we move forward with this project. And as far as art and streetscape, things like that, maybe there'd be some private foundations that would be willing to contribute to those improvements. And that's all I have on the presentation. Again, this is the draft report. We will package this up with the final report of the pedestrian crossing and bring them back as an entire package probably in October or so. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kip. Richie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. Kip, unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend the last couple of meetings and the stakeholder meetings. So if you can indulge me a little bit on the last couple of meetings, was there much public input into the last couple of meetings?
The main public input came from the survey itself. That was our main tool for gathering public input. There is a study website called the 6thstreetstudy.com. That's got a public commenting link on it as well. We have received some comments through that, but since the initial public meetings, the most feedback received was through the survey.
One of the curiosity questions I have for you is, was there any mentions of utilizing charging stations along the corridor? For example, we're seeing the Tesla units being installed throughout the city, and proposals being made for other charging stations. Was this part of the conversation as well?
That was not part of the conversation. Although if that's a comment that you would like added to the final report, please put that in on the website.
Thank you, and the public can do that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
At 6thstreetstudy.com.
And one of the other considerations that we had a discussion about, and just in fact, it was just a couple of hours ago, we had a conversation about a walkway that goes underneath of the street. Is it possible to get that entered into the conversation as well?
Absolutely. That again, those are just two examples to get a gauge of what the public would like. When this gets into the engineering phase, those two concepts, as well as many others, will be analyzed for both safety, drainage, mobility. All of those things will be analyzed.
Yeah, primarily what I was interested in is if we go with the elevated bridge, if we can still meet and maintain the 2% grade for ADA. So
That would be one of the things that would certainly be looked at in the engineering portion.
Yes, understand. And then I appreciate your being very optimistic about the BUILD grant possibility, and you'll have to remind us what BUILD stands for.
I can't remember that off the
I
top
can't
of my head.
remember it either, but I thought it was very appropriate. We will have that opportunity to get that grant, and that'll help us a long ways. And then there's some other ideas or concepts that, if it's all right, we'll enter that into your comment sections as well.
Absolutely, we love public input. Maybe you've got an idea we haven't thought of and might be the winning idea.
Thank you, Kip. I yield.
Councilman Stroman, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend attempts that you've made to guard.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no one else that has any comments, Laura, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Awesome. I will look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Armstrong, a second by Councilman Nordstrom, and we will go to a roll call vote.
Nordstrom,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Stroman, Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 13, approve the 2020 through 2023 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment, number 20-004.
So this tip amendment is like, so Kip brought the draft tip to you. This is actually for the previous tip. We get several amendments a year. This one is adding 2 DOT projects to the tip. They're both small bridges, more like box culverts. One is in the county, one is in the city. The one in the city is located on San Marco and South Canyon over the Pure Street drainage ditch. So these are just 2 additional projects that are added to the tip. Since there's federal money involved, we always have to do an amendment to that tip to bring them forward.
Thank you very much. I don't see anybody with any comments. Mr. Nordstrom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, if I make the motion to approve this
You may.
and retain the floor, if I get a second. Kelly, this just has to do with vehicle transportation, or does it include bike, pedestrian, mass transit? Am I correct?
This is actually just grading, structure and approach grading. This project, both of these projects are just structure and approach grading for box culverts. These are not massive projects. They're just 2 small projects that, and like I said, we bring forward a lot of these tip amendments throughout the year. This happens to be the 4th one. And they're just additions, or sometimes they're changes in the year that a project is being programmed for. Sometimes they are put on here because the amount of money changed. The last one we had was because the La Crosse Street interchange project went up a little bit from the initial proposal to the actual design costs. So this one is a very minimal amendment. Like I said, it's just structure and grading for 2 box culverts, one in the city, one in the county.
Very site specific then. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. I'll yield.
Thank you very much. And I am looking for a motion to approve. Oh, that's right. Mr. Nordstrom made the motion to approve, and Mr. Stroman made the second. So I will do a roll call vote.
Nordstrom,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Roberts,
Aye.
Stroman, Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 14, appeal by Lloyd Companies of a stipulation to extend public water main as part of an exception request approval. And Lloyd Companies has asked to continue this until the next Public Works meeting, which will be September 15th. If I can get a motion. Have a motion by Councilman Nordstrom, a second by Councilman Stroman, and we will go to a roll call vote.
Nordstrom.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Stroman. Evans. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 15 is an invitation to city council members to tour the solid waste facility.
Good afternoon, council. My name is Jeff Barber. I'm the solid waste superintendent, and I just wanted to personally invite all the council members to come out and take a tour, see some of our changes, and see some of the challenges that we are facing out there, and answer some of your questions. And that's all I got.
Thank you very much. We do have a question from Mr. Evans.
This isn't really a question. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Barber's saying. Mr. Nordstrom and Mr. Jones and I had a rather thorough tour about 2 weeks ago. We got a complete taste of all that is involved out there. I think it's a great operation. I think with the upcoming solid waste study that's due for approval or recommendations or whatever comes up in May, I think we are several months out, I think it's imperative that every single member of this council go out there and see what they're actually going to be voting on. I don't think, unless you've been there, you have any kind of idea how comprehensive and really how thorough these people are and really involved in their mission. People are at the solid waste facility, so I would recommend before that point, every single person on the council take the time to do what he's asking us to do. Tour the facility, find out what you really need to know before we're going to be voting on any improvements or anything else out there. So I just want to thank you for coming and offering that invitation and for your tour. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and that's not mine. I don't know whose that is. No other comments? I will look for a motion to acknowledge. We have a motion to acknowledge by Councilman Evans, a second by Councilman Nordstrom. One last roll call vote.
Nordstrom.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Roberts.
Aye.
Stroman. Evans. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Stroman, a second by Councilman Evans, and we are adjourned.